Hi, I'm the Space Quest historian. Well then, since my first King's Quest video, there's been a frankly astonishing outpouring of support coming my way, and I'm really not emotionally equipped to properly thank people for this staggering amount of goodwill. I'd hoped we might hit the King's Quest 2 mark at the start of January, maybe King's Quest 3 if I was shooting for the moon, but hot damn if shit didn't skyrocket, and now we're all the way up to King's Quest 5. So I'm already really far behind, and 2021 hasn't barely even begun yet. Well, I guess this is now the King's Quest channel for the next foreseeable future. Let's just check in and see how King Graham is doing down there in the dungeon. Yep, still hanging in there. Now, remember, I'm sorry it had to come to this, but he's still staying down there until I reach this final tier and play Mask of Eternity. So please, if you haven't already, go have a look at my Patreon page. There is a link in the description of this video. Anyway, I'd better get started on King's Quest II, Romancing the Throne. Which, honestly, is a really bewildering title, first and foremost. I mean, I get it's a play on Romancing the Stone, which is either a term used by jewelers or a fucked-up Michael Douglas movie, depending on what kind of shit you're into. But at no point in this game, as far as I can tell, is Graham getting hot and bothered with a piece of royal furniture, nor does he appear to be into objectophilia, so I guess the title's just meant to be this mildly chuckle-worthy pun that falls absolutely apart under closer scrutiny. Cool. Okay, let's check out what the story of this game is actually about. And once again, for the purists and other complete nut jobs out there, we are playing the old-school PC Junior version from 1985. This is the earliest version of the game that I could find, version 1.0W, because I figured if I'm going to play these games, I should play them the way people first experienced them. If you're going to do something, you got to do it right. Now, I did also play the quote-unquote standard IBM PC DOS version from 1987. This is version 2.1, and it's the version everyone's probably most familiar with, since it's the version on all the King's Quest collections that are still being sold today. And I did this for a very specific reason, which I'll come back to later. And finally, just for shits and giggles, I played through like 99.9% of the Apple II GS version, which came out a year later in 1988, even though the title screen still says 1987. Don't worry, I'll come back to all of this shit in a bit. Let's just get the basic story out of the way. Because this time we actually have a story, and here's the gist of it.
It is a truth, universally acknowledged, that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
Yeah, and before I get any Jane Austen fans yelling at me in the comments, yes, I know about the debate of whether or not that line is meant ironically or not. Put that aside and try to stay focused, please. We get an opening cutscene this time where we get the Cliff's Note of the story, but for the real juicy, meaty lore, we have to once again turn to the game's manual. Let's see here. Oh, designed by Roberta Williams and story by Annette Childs? Who the hell is that? I mean, these days it's pretty common knowledge that a lot of the later Sierra games attributed to Roberta Williams' genius was actually designed by other up-and-coming designers. King's Quest VI was Jane Jensen, King's Quest VII was Lorelei Shannon, Lorabo 2 was Bruce Balfour, and Phantasmagoria was Andy Hoyos, just to name a few. But I didn't know it started this far back. Now, I'm not saying Roberta didn't have a hand in it at all, or that she took credit for other people's work. Roberta deserves a massive amount of respect and admiration for what she pioneered in the adventure game genre. No, I'm actually being serious. But it still doesn't answer who the hell this Annette Childs is. I searched through both Ken Williams' book and Sean Mills' book. She isn't mentioned in there anywhere. I had a look at SierraChess.com and it says her birth date is... yeah? So it strikes me as odd that a person who penned the story to the sequel to Sierra's flagship product would have such a small presence in the general pantheon of the company. And I'm not the only one. Other people have wondered about this too. Here's a forum thread from SierraGamers.com where someone asks who the hell this Annette Childs person is, and someone else replies that she did documentation and packaging in the early days of Sierra, so she was probably in marketing, and also wrote for the Sierra newsletter. And indeed, here is a blurry scan of the Sierra newsletter Volume 1, Issue 2 from late 1987 with an editorial by Annette Girth Childs. That's her blurry picture in the blurry corner up there. So she was editor of the goddamn newsletter, and she wrote the story to King's Quest II, the celebrated sequel to the game that fucking pioneered graphic adventure gaming as we know it today. You'd think she'd get a little recognition at least. But no, instead Annette Childs is all but erased from history, and I guess guess that's okay, because her story is fucking vile. I'm sorry, I know this is just classic medieval fairy tale stuff, but I fucking hate this shit. After King Graham viciously murdered a couple of monsters and left his only 2 remaining loyal subjects to die of starvation in the first game, somehow he now has a prosperous kingdom to rule over, and one day his magic mirror, the one that can foretell the future, shows him an image of King Edward the Indifferent, his deceased predecessor, who tells him in no uncertain terms, "Hey buddy, now that you've polished the crown, how about we find someone to polish your highness's wing-wang?" I guess in addition to foretelling the future, the magic mirror is also a hotline to the realm of the dead. It must be nice to write fantasy stuff where you can just make up any new bullshit rule, call it magic, and not have to worry about pesky stuff like having it make any basic logical sense. So Graham goes to his Prime Minister Gerwain, we have one of those now apparently, who suggests that he invite all the single ladies to his front yard for some royal milkshake, so he can judge and measure each and every one of them like fucking cattle. And instead of telling Gerwain to eat every inch of his ass like a normal sane person would do, instead Graham throws a party that lasts 2 goddamn days, just to make sure he has enough time to viciously and mercilessly pick apart the slightest perceived flaws of every single eligible maiden in the land. One of them squints, another is clumsy, another is coy, which I figure is another word for why is the king eyeballing me, and one giggles. That's enough to turn off his royal lofty standardsness. And I don't know what kind of shit they serve at these royal weekend parties, but it must be some potent stuff, because after coming to the sullen realization that his kingdom's comprised entirely of uggos and habitual gigglers, King Graham retires to his room to finish off the rest of his stash, I imagine, and to once again stare into his mirror of bullshit, which, new rule, can now also show you something that's happening concurrently somewhere else. In it, he sees a fair maiden trapped in a quartz tower, weeping morosely, and that tempts him. Suddenly, Graham has the most powerful royal boner the kingdom has ever seen, so apparently women in distress is what does it for him. The mirror, new rule, it can also talk, tells him that he's looking at the fair maiden Valinus from the kingdom of Kalima. So instantly smitten to the point where he says he'll die trying to save her. Nice one, Graham. Just leave your prosperous kingdom in a lurch like that. It's real fucking noble of you. And off our valiant hero fucks to find and rescue this woman so he, and this is true, I'm not making this up, can make her his wife and use her to sire an heir. So just so we're clear on this, he wants to go rescue her from captivity so he can bring her back to his place, subjugate her, and then repeatedly hump her, consent be damned, until she squats out a male child, because a magic mirror told him to. True love conquers all, my bare ass. Fuck this nonsense right in the fucking ear. I hate this. Can we just quit now? Alright, fine. The game starts out on the shores of Kalima, which, side note, is perhaps not named after, but definitely shares the name of one of the harshest and cruelest gulags during the Stalin era, just in case this wasn't romantic enough for you. Kalima is another open-world arena, much like Daventry in the first game, where everything is pretty much accessible to you right from the start, and once again you have an array of dangerous beasts roaming the countryside, including, but not limited to, another asshole wizard, another kleptomaniac dwarf, and Hagatha, the Toothless Crone. She apparently is the one who imprisoned Valinus in the first place, but spoiler, nothing is ever made of that, and she's never defeated or brought to any justice for her kidnapping, so I'm not gonna bother trying to fit that into any context. Apparently she was just jealous, but she also eats human flesh, so I guess she's got that going for her. Not everyone is a perilous random encounter, though. You also run into this fairy who gives you a protection spell, a mermaid who lets you ride her seahorse to Neptune's underwater kingdom, and, hold on to something, Little Red Riding Hood, and her grandma, who may or may not be a wolf depending on what mood she's in. How fucking high is Graham right now? He's really fucking high apparently, because on the other side of this rickety bridge he finds a door just standing impossibly in the middle of nowhere. The door opens into another door, which opens into another door, which finally lets him into the enchanted land where Hagatha has imprisoned Valinus, and the key to each of these doors is hidden somewhere in the kingdom. But unlike the first game, these can't be solved in any order you want. You have to go up to the door, get the hint for how to unlock it, then fuck off and find that particular key. Then go back, unlock the door, get the hint for the next door, then fuck off and get that key. So it's a much more linear game than the first one, and things only get weirder and weirder the longer you get into it. Okay, look, here's my headcanon, right? We never see Daventry at all in this game, so let's for the sake of argument say that Graham did ascend to the throne and somehow turn that shithole of a kingdom into a prosperous one. He then throws his little weekend party, eats every magic mushroom in the whole kingdom, and goes on a merry head trip imagining all of this shit while his prime minister is mopping up his vomit and urine from the floor. It's the only explanation I have for any of the shit that's going on here. Okay, first up, King Neptune's key. You have to hitch a ride on this seahorse, but to do that, you have to give the mermaid some flowers. You get the flowers from Little Red Riding Hood here, who has lost her basket of goodies. The basket of goodies is right in Grandma's fucking mailbox, so we have to assume Miss Hood here is just as fucking high as Graham is, and she forgot she already dropped them off. They start early in Kalima. Anyway, once you meet King Neptune, you give him his trident back, which was just lying on the fucking beach somewhere, and the key's yours. Next, the key in the clouds. This one involves hitching a ride on a magic carpet to get on top of a mountain where the key is just lying around in a cave. Who would have a magic carpet? Why, this genie, who lives inside a magic lamp you get from this antique shop. Now, the kingdom of Kalima is just as barren and fucked as Daventry was in the first game. There's only 6 inhabitants in total, one of which just runs around and steals people's shit. Another is a vicious old hag who boils people alive. This guy's just a vicious old douchebag who turns people into frogs for no other reason than him being an asshole. These 2 are on loan from the children's section at the public library, and the last one is this fucking antique shop owner. What kind of market is there for antiquing in a realm that's so fallen apart that there's poison in the lakes and its bridges are falling apart? Okay, fine, she'll trade the lamp if we go get her bird back from Hagatha, so we go to Hagatha's cave. Seriously, Graham, how fucking high are you? We get the bird, we get the lamp, we rub the lamp, and off we fuck on a magic carpet. On the mountaintop, we're blocked by a poisonous viper.
A poisonous snake!
Shut up, I haven't gotten to you yet. In case you're wondering, snakes are venomous, not poisonous. Now, if you ate snake venom, that would be poisonous. This admittedly subtle distinction would remain lost on Roberta Williams all the way up to and including King's Quest V, which I'm happy to say I will be covering sometime in the near future, but I don't think she cares. She didn't care about spelling Rumpelstiltskin's name right in the first game, and I mention this because I think we need to start handing out awards for, most gnome-like fuck you moments in these games. This puzzle here with the Viper earns a solid 4 out of 5 gnomes for being almost as notoriously obtuse as the infamous gnome puzzle from the first game himself. The genie also gave you a leather bridle, and if you throw that at the snake, it turns into a fucking horse with wings. And the horse talks to you, says he was turned into a snake by an evil enchanter. You mean this dickhead? And here, have this magic sugar cube, just in case you want some absinthe to go along with that drug psychosis you're having. Seriously, Graham, how fucking high are you? The last key is hiding inside this castle near a poisoned lake. For once, we're using the word poison correctly. I don't know what's in this lake, and we're never told, but whatever it is some fast-acting shit. You set foot anywhere near this shit, you're not only dead from poisoning, you're dead from extreme poisoning. This lovely fella appears after you've solved the other 2 doors and will gladly ferry you across the extreme poison at a price. Well, to hell with your price, buddy. I mean, granted, we've been picking up jewelry of astonishing value from tree logs and holes in rocks and just lying out on the beach, but finders keepers, asshole. There's got to be another way around this. And there is, but it requires a level of serendipity I'm sure most people just stumbled upon by absolute happenstance. If you go into the dwarf's treehouse cave thing and steal his pot of soup, then hop back and give it to old granny here, she tells you to look under her bed. Under her bed, you find a cloak and a ring. And if you wear these, then go up to the ferryman and just leap into his boat, he'll mistake you for someone else and give you a free ride. Never mind the fact that Graham's sprite doesn't change to show that he's actually wearing the damn cloak. Never mind that the ferryman never so much as hinted at this even being an option or that he was waiting for someone. Never mind that you have no reason to go across the lake in the first place other than the fact that it's there. Because, okay, you probably know this as well as I do already, but the castle on the other side is Dracula's castle. Fucking Dracula lives here. In Kalima. What, the Romanians caught onto him and he had to flee Transylvania? Is this his summer residence? Is he renting? What the fuck is going on here? And more importantly, what was Granny doing with his cloak and ring? Did they hook up? Is Grandma a vampire bitch? Does that explain why she keeps turning into a wolf? And this puzzle here, if you can even call it that, of wearing the cloak and ring and then getting a free ride, a lot of the puzzles in the first 2 King's Quest games that I've played so far have this sort of backwards logic, and I kind of understand why, because it seems utterly cruel and unfair and stupidly obtuse by today's standards, but you have to see it from a historical perspective. If you bought a computer game in 1985, that was an investment. Specifically, an investment of your time. You spent your money on this thing, you wanted to get your money's worth. You didn't want a game you could breeze through in a couple of hours. You wanted to get stuck. You wanted the game to tease you. You wanted to drive to work each morning absent-mindedly ramming other cars and mowing down pedestrians because you were thinking about possible solutions to these puzzles. And you wanted to sit there at work staring blankly at whatever it was you were meant to be doing because you couldn't wait to get home and try out these new outlandish ideas you had during your early morning murder commute. And when you finally got home, you couldn't wait to get on the computer and turn it on and wait 5 million years for the fucking thing to boot up and load the game and then try out these outlandish ideas, only to have the parser teasingly tell you that you can't do that here, at least not now, implying that maybe at some point this was a viable option, just not now, not knowing that it's just jerking you around and that's just a general no dickhead, try something else response. And then you go to bed having made absolutely no fucking progress, get up the next day and do the same thing all over again for months and months on end. This was how you played adventure games in the 1980s. This was the accepted norm. The puzzle space seem bullshit by our standards today, but just imagine the exhilaration of having beaten your fucking head against a brick wall for months on end, only to someday, on a complete fucking lark, be wearing the ring and cloak for no other reason than that the game lets you do it, then jump into the boat, and it fucking works! And you're like, holy shit, what just happened? That worked? And that euphoria of making progress after what seems like eons of stagnation just cannot be put into words. It's like every neuron in your brain exploding in a fireworks display of pure orgasmic ecstasy, and you instantly want more. So you stay up until 5 a.m. in the goddamn morning playing the game, hoping to get that same buzz again, even though you almost instantly run into another brick wall, and you find yourself repeating the same cycle of frustrated tedium all over again. If you know what you're doing, you can speedrun King's Quest 2 in less than half an hour, but in 1985, people would gladly beat their heads against dumbfuck backwards logic like this because it meant they were getting value for their money. Where the fuck was I? Oh yeah, Count Dracula. Okay, he's dead now, and that's the third and final key. Side note, I'd love to see what the hell Graham is doing back in the real world now. He's probably pounced on Gerwain in a PCP-like induced stupor and jammed a piece of wood through his sternum. There's blood everywhere, and everyone's too afraid to come into the room because their monarch keeps yelling nonsense about how he's defeated a vampire and that the vampire had a lovely cooked ham on the dinner table that's mine, all mine now, and everyone thinks this can't possibly get any worse, but little do they know. Oh, little do they fucking know. The third door opens, leading into the enchanted realm, and fuck me, we are tripping balls now, aren't we? There is no coming down from this high. Graham has finally fried his brain. The sky is red. The sand is blue. He's just caught a fish that's 3 times the size of him, which he then throws back into the water. The fish thanks him for saving his life instead of berating him for almost killing it. And let's not even ask why it can talk, because of course it can. It then offers him a ride on its back. Somewhere in the back of his mind, the final remaining vestiges of King Graham's synaptic functions bid a silent farewell as they slip off into permanent drug-induced psychosis, and he imagines riding across a brightly purple-colored ocean on the back of a flopping fish, arriving at the quartz tower, scaling its winding steps, and at last setting eyes on the woman he fantasized about. And just to confirm that this is all just a sparkling hallucination brought on by a tragic overdose, she not only accepts his advances on the sole criteria that he's the first dude to show up, but their ensuing wedding is attended by every figment of Graham's once fertile imagination. There's the giant we mercilessly slaughtered in the first game. There's the asshole enchanter and his friend, the asshole dwarf. Fucking Hagatha and Dracula shows up. Why would they invite Hagatha, the fucking bitch who threw in the tower in the first place? Along with 3 sea creatures who, if there was any logic to be had, would be flopping around on the floor, gasping for their lives and pleading to be tossed back into the sea. What the fuck did I just play? Okay, time for the bonus round. I said at the start of this video that I also played through the IBM PC DOS remake from 1987, and there is a very good reason I did that. See the screen? This is what it looks like on the PC Junior, and this is what it looks like in the DOS remake. See the difference? Now, it's a little known fact that Scott Murphy, one of the two guys from Andromeda who would go on to create the Space Quest series, cut his teeth on programming with this game. Not the PC Junior original from 1985, but the remake from 1987. And like most people learning new things, he experimented. Among other things, he introduced this lovely little hole in the rock outside the cave. And if you look inside it, well... This goes on for nearly 3 minutes, and it includes a lot of content from Space Quest 1. Backgrounds, animated sprites, music. I don't know how much space this took up on the game disc, but it can have been peanuts. And reportedly, Roberta Williams was pissed when she found out this was put in. But then again, there's a sign hanging on this tree that advertises both King's Quest 3 and Space Quest, so she can't have been that pissed. But just for kicks, I wanted to see if this Easter egg also made it into any other versions of King's Quest 2, so I also played the Apple II GS version. And when you get up to the top of the mountain and look in the hole, you get this. Fucking what? Okay, I guess maybe she was kind of pissed after all. Oh, and I said at the start of the video that I only played through like 99.9% of the Apple II GS version, and if you're wondering what happened to that last per mil, well, I was playing on an emulator, and I think I may have gotten some corrupt disk images or something. I don't know. For some reason, it would only let me save my game once, and then never again. Not unless I restarted the emulator, and that seemed like effort. So, I just played through the whole game without saving and biting my nails and hugging the edges of the screen in case Hackatha or one of the other dickweeds would show up unannounced to bring the game to a screeching halt. And I actually got all the way up to the end where you climb up the steps of the Quartz Tower and fucking klutz. But I'm assuming the ending is the same in the 2GS version as any of the other versions. In fact, let me just check. Yeah, it's the same. Okay, back to the bonus round. Here's another little difference between the original and the 1987 remakes. You can call Little Red Riding Hood a sperm-burping gutter slut, and the parser will accept this. And it's not just Miss Hood, any female character in the game shares the same synonym list, so you can call all the women sperm-burping gutter sluts. The antique shop owner. This mermaid. Fucking grandma. And as far as I know, Roberta Williams still remains unaware of this, and I think we should all keep it that way. On a slightly more innocent note, having all the women share the same synonym list also means that you can walk up to any female character and call them by any name you want. You can call Valenus a mermaid and the old witch grandma, and the game just shrugs and goes, close enough. So, final thoughts. I guess we should wrap this up somehow. Did I enjoy playing this? No, but I did enjoy it slightly more than the first one. It's a little more structured, given that you have to find the 3 keys in a specific order, which both works in its favor and also doesn't. I mean, I like having a clear goal to work towards, whereas in the first one I was just wandering all over the place messing with shit for no other reason than that it was there. But even though this one is a bit more linear, it also has a lot of backwards logic, and the fact that it is linear is not even apparent to you until way later in the game, so I still felt constantly lost and confused as to what I was supposed to be doing, or even why I was doing anything. And the linearity with the 3 doors just means that every time you unlock a door, you have to backtrack and check each and every fucking screen in the realm again just to see if anything has changed, which is just tedious. On the whole, I hate the fantasy setting in general where anything goes with no rhyme or reason because it's magic. And even if this was any other genre, I would still hate the vile wife-hunting backstory even more. But the good news is I still have 3, 4, and 5 to play, and I'm told things only get better from here on. Maybe one of them will touch my heart and my dreams. Fucking settle down, Graham, Jesus. And if you want me to have a look at 6 and 7 and the infamous Mask of Eternity, then please head over to my Patreon at patreon.com/SpaceQuestHistorian, because things are a bit rough here in SQH land in 2021, but you guys are making it so much better with all your generous contributions, and I hope you're enjoying these videos, and I hope my luck changes very soon so you can stop giving me money again. I'm the Space Quest Historian. Until next time, I'll see you around the Chrono Stream. Bye!